You are now watching The Lone Blown. Blown!
Yo, what's happening, YouTube? You're back here at The Lone Blown. Thanks for stopping by. And today we're going to be going over Decidueye. Decidueye is one of the coolest cards that we have coming out of Darkness Ablaze. And it kind of is really similar to Obstagoon that we received from Sword and Shield. You might be like, what's their grass type, their dark type, what's going on here, Zach? And I'm like, don't worry, I got y'all. So the reason why Decidueye is cool is because it stops GX, V, and by stopping V, it stops VMAX Pokemon as well with its Force Camouflage ability. So we're stopping a large portion of the metagame. What can actually attack it are only Pokemon that are not worth 2 or 3 prize cards. So if you think about a deck like, let's even say Zacian ADP. Zacian ADP, one of the most successful decks that we've had in the past year or so. It's got Zacian, it's got ADP, maybe Jirachi, Crobat, Dedenne. It actually can't attack at all. So it's an auto loss very similar to how Decidueye, like how Obstagoon was an auto loss. So Decidueye kind of steps in as the new Obstagoon in this format. I think it's a really cool deck. I think decks are going to have to add text against this deck in order to see success. Otherwise, it's going to be similar to like when Obstagoon was played at OCIC 2020. We saw it make top 8 at that event. And that's basically where events ended off due to the worldwide pandemic. But it did see some success at the Limitless online events and other PTCGO events. So if you're looking for any translations, check out the description. I do have links for all the translations there. Shout out to PokeBeach. There is also a deck list there if you can't follow around on this image for whatever reason, trying to save some data or something. Totally got it. And there's a bunch of social links out there too. Before we jump into the profile, if you could follow the channel, that'd be amazing. Subscribe, however you want to do it. And if you could like this video as well, it'd mean the world to me. I've been trying to improve the content that I'm making. It's my first endeavor as a solo YouTuber, so I'd appreciate any and all support. That being said, let's jump into the video. So we got 4 copies of Decidueye here. So Decidueye, like I said, coming out of Darkness Ablaze, it has its Force Camouflage ability, stopping all damage done by V, GX, and VMAX by default. Got 140 HP, Stage 2 Pokemon, Grass, Colorless, 90, and then Ping 20 to the bench. It's weak to fire, but that's not the biggest weakness that we could worry about, especially considering there's not too many basic, not even like basic, just like non 2-3 prize card Pokemon that are going to succeed in knocking this out. Every Pokemon's got to evolve from somewhere if they are a Stage 2 Pokemon or a Stage 1 Pokemon. So we're evolving from Dartrix. This is the best Dartrix I believe we have. Darkness Ablaze as well. Just 40 damage for a grass. Decent HP. I mean, when it comes to Stage 1 Pokemon, they often get shafted. I think that this is the best Rowlet that we have. It has Hide and Seek. So you could flip a coin and possibly prevent an attack from going through. Not sold on it because it has 50 HP. But I'm also not sold on the Rowlet from this set. If you have an idea for a Rowlet, feel free to let me know in the comments below. I mean, I think this one's probably going to save our butts. Works well with the Rosa engine that we have in this deck. We got 4 copies of Jirachi here. So Jirachi works really nicely. Stellar Wish. We want to search out rare candies. Seems like a pretty easy match here for the deck. Just making it more consistent. As soon as we get our Decidueye set up and then we focus on the Pokemon that can actually attack us, that's how we win the game. We do have a copy of Pheromosa and Buzzwole-GX. The reason why we play this card is just for us to steal games with its GX attack to draw an extra prize cards. So with Decidueye's split arrow attack, we could actually build up damage on a Pokemon and then boss order up that Pokemon and knock it out with Beast Game GX. We also have Mr. Mime here. I think a lot of decks are going to be playing Scoop Up Net. We could Scoop Up block those from going back. I mean, it doesn't sound terrible. It also helps us with the Pheromosa Buzzwole to keep things in play. or maybe even preventing our opponent from playing things. We don't necessarily want to have a huge bench, but the one thing that's different than Obstagoon is this is an ability and Obstagoon was an attack, so Forest Camouflage is good wherever you are. So we could set up a bunch of these Pokemon, and I mean, they're pretty hard to knock out in general. We have 4 copies of Marnie in this deck. The reason why we have 4 copies of Marnie, we got a lot of running pieces in a deck like this, so we don't want to be discarding our rare candies. We don't want to be discarding evolution-based pieces, so it will allow us to preserve those, kind of get that shuffle draw. Make sure not to shuffle your hand into your deck. It shuffles your hand and put it at the bottom of your deck. Same thing for your opponent, but that's what Marnie's there for. Similar to Chip Ritchie and Grant Manley's Obstagoon list from the Limitless qualifiers, we have a Rosa-based engine. I thought that was really cool when they played that. So if one of our Pokemon was knocked out, we could search our deck for a Pokemon, a trainer card, and an energy. I mean, it works really well with what we're searching for in this deck, and it will allow us to grab the things that we need. I do also have 3 copies of Professor's Research in here just to make the deck a little bit more consistent. Do be careful though when you're discarding things because you will need some of these pieces back. We also have 2 copies of Boss Orders, kind of for the strategy that I was saying for the Beast game, or maybe even focusing to draw extra prize cards with Split Arrow by bringing up a Pokemon and getting a double knockout, or focusing on Pokemon that could actually get around Forest Camouflage. We also have 3 copies of Turffield Stadium, which works really nicely with this deck. It allows us just to search for a Grass Evolution Pokemon, so if we have a Rare Candy, we're almost good to go. That's why the counts for Pokemon Communications are a little bit wacky in this deck, but Turffield Stadium is really nice, and it can work every single turn. Works nicely with the Pokemon Communication that we have in here as well. We've got 4 copies of Quick Ball. I mean, we just need to get things set up, whether it's a Jirachi or a Rowlet. 4 copies of Rare Candy. I mean, it's pretty self-explanatory. We do have the Turffields, and we do have 3 copies of Rowlet, so we can evolve... sorry, not Rowlet, Dartrix. We can evolve the Dartrix in this deck comparatively to other decks. A lot of Stage 2 decks play only 1 Stage 1 Pokemon nowadays, so we have 3. We can get around with Turffield, but Rare Candy is really our end goal. We do have 4 copies of Switch. This is really for Jirachi Stellar Wish, or maybe we have a damaged Decidueye that we want to chill on the bench for a little bit. Switch is a pretty generalized card anyway, so it's pretty solid. Got 2 copies of Pokemon Communication. The Pokemon Communications, I mean, we play very little because we have the Turffield. We could search out all of our Pokemon. Like, all of these are basics. We could search these out with Turffield. We don't really need too much. This is more for specifically a card or to put a card away. We also have 2 copies of Scoop Up Net. So the reason why we have 2 copies of Scoop Up Net, again, is just like the same spaces that we'd have for a skateboard on Jirachi. We used towards Scoop Up Net. Maybe we have a Pokemon on our bench like Mr. Mime and we want to prevent our opponent from knocking things out. Scoop Up Net can help us out a little bit there too. And there's 1 copy of Ordinary Rod. So in a deck like this, sometimes you will discard these cards with Professor's Research, or you're going to have to make a tough decision with Quick Ball. Ordinary Rod can help us get some things back. Or maybe if our opponent took a quick knockout. We have 4 copies of Capture Energy. So since Split Arrow does cost Grass Colorless Energy, we can attach a Colorless Energy to a Rowlet, or any other Pokemon that is, and then just search out Pokemon on our bench. It helps us really get things out like Jirachi, switch into a Jirachi, getting out another Rowlet, getting it set up for Rosa so we can just go Rare Candy and get the knockout next turn, or just set up with Forest Camouflage. And we have 6 copies of Grass Energy here. I mean, 6 is a little low, but we also don't really need too much. Our strategy is more like, does our opponent have an answer to Forest Camouflage? And the big question is, yes or no. We'll have to see exactly how it works out. But I mean, this deck seems consistent enough. While I've been building this deck and testing this deck, I've considered adding in maybe Air Balloon or U-Turn Board, and maybe Guzma-Hala, going with a Guzma-Hala based engine, because we could search out Turffield Stadium, Capture Energy, similar to how like a Pikarom would run, but we're not really getting too much of an effect from a Tag Call based engine beyond grabbing this. We don't really need to heal with Malolana. Cynthia Caitlyn really wouldn't add too much, so I think the Rosa based engine is pretty strong right now, but it is something to consider. I think it's just going to be minor changes at this point, seeing what works, but this is where my preferences lead me. Overall, I think it's a really solid deck. If you're not prepared for it, this is easily a tier 1 or impossible to beat deck for a lot of decks. Similar to Obstagoon in this current format that we have. So if you've been playing on PTCGO for a little bit, and you've played against Obstagoon, and you don't have an answer against Obstagoon, you just don't have an answer. Same thing as this deck. If you don't have an answer for Forest Camouflage, you just lose before the game even starts. Sure, you might have one out in your deck or one Volcanion, but you want to make sure that you have a little bit more outs for that. So if you're trying to beat this deck with Zacian ADP, maybe adding a couple copies of Duraludon, maybe adding copies of Hoopa, maybe increasing the Spiritomb count or Hoopa count in your Eternatus VMAX deck. I mean, if there was a regional championships tomorrow, this is probably one of my top considerations, just for the fact that Forest Camouflage is an absolutely busted ability. So I'll leave it at that. Feel free to try this list out. Like I said, we do have a text version of it in the description, so check that out along with some of my social links. Totally appreciate everyone watching so far. Happy testing in our new Darkness Ablaze format.
Really hope that you enjoyed watching that video. I totally enjoyed making it. If you enjoyed it, be sure to like the video, share the video with everyone that you know, and subscribe to the channel as well. Totally appreciate all the support. We got a lot of cool things happening on the channel, so stay tuned for more. Be sure to check out the social links in the description. Thanks and have yourself a great one.